taínos comes from South America. And when you come from South America, you have the lower Antilles and then you have the greater Antilles. So no matter what, if people take things at face value for the migration history of Puerto Ricans on the island, Dominicans had to go through Puerto Rico to get to the Dominican Republic anyway, like you know what I'm talking about. But in the spirit of that, I bring you Brother Suñez. Show 'em what you're made of.
Peace. Peace. My name is Suñez Allah. I'm the Nation of God and Earth. I guess what I'm going to share is kind of autobiographical. I don't want to tell people what they are. I don't want to tell people what they should be doing. I spent a lot of time telling kids what they ought to do, so I don't want to spend time telling adults what they ought to do. Everybody already made their decision. Everybody here already made their decision. So in the essence of trying to make something that is autobiographical somewhere, so you can see a different story and how it relates to being Puerto Rican, how it relates to being Boricua, how it relates to, you know, all the hip-hop lyrics that I'm trying to analyze and spend my time analyzing and give a little bit of a biographical history. I guess it starts with dedication, this brief little lecture. I have to say that it begins with my parents, my Boricua parents, and whatever else, everything that they taught me, everything that they mistaught me, and everything that they refused to teach me. All those three are important. And I also want to give a little shout out to my family, my Earth Isaiah, my daughter Luna, and who this is all dedicated to. My daughter forthcoming in there, right in that belly right there. So I guess the first thing is when I've been teaching at a law school in Mecca, that's 126th Street, 7th Avenue, for the last 13 years. I teach a course called the Peace Course, the Political Education and Civilization Enrichment class. Political education, how to deal with the outside world, what blocks to walk on, right? Which blocks to stay away from when the pigs is around, which blocks to go on, and how to deal with your brothers and sisters of all different realities, all different mentalities, right? Because no matter who we define as an enemy, and up here, those corporations there, the immediate threat looks like this brother right here. Looks like that brother right there, right? So that's the political education. But the civilization enrichment, though, is what my journey was all about as well. The civilization enrichment is the science of everything in life. Showing them what they are, what they truly are. And everybody's in this room saying that they're Boricua, but there always should be a quest for something more. And so what I want to share with you is what I share all the time. I want to share with you the main principle that I give to the youth. No matter how young they are, no matter how old they are, if they're a 25-year-old pitcher on the street, they're a bit too old for that. Or if they're a 15-year-old who has no idea what they're going to be doing, okay? And I guess for us, though, I guess because this is a revolutionary event, this is absolutely a revolutionary idea that Papote and Shaking and all the brothers, you know, have put me onto here. I guess then it is always a quest when you deal with the youth. The best part, the next generation, is the struggle between innovation and preservation. So how can we have a way of preserving, saying that, look, this is what Boricua is, though. So when you listen to salsa music, right? And I love Hector Lavoe, so I got to say something. If you love salsa music, though, then if you say that Lavoe is the greatest of all time, then so be it, you've got to prove it, though. And for some people think, I already made my decision, though. My blog I've been writing for years is lavoerevolt.blogspot.com, right? And whatever we decide, we have to show and prove it, though. We try to preserve what we think is correct. We try to preserve what is safe, right? Because the young brother here was talking about doing things for the future so that they can have a future. And maybe that the best part, the young, would actually be daring enough to innovate something that would change what we had tried to preserve. So it's a struggle between innovation and preservation. And I'm saying that these shouldn't be opposing, they should be wed together, they should be married together, and they can be blended together. But you gotta have some daring. You gotta have some wherewithal, you gotta have some strength to be daring enough to innovate something that preserves what you know to be right, And the beginning to tell a young person is to tell them that what you think is right is only should be based on what you know. And just like Sha King, that principle became embedded with me when I got knowledge of myself. So as a Puerto Rican history, as a history that is very Puerto Rican, did you know that I've been writing about hip-hop music, whether it through be as an editor or a writer, for over 18 years, gonna be 19 in just a couple of months. And so I went through Vibe magazine as an editor and a writer. I went through Double XL as one of its first writers. I didn't go through King magazine because I don't write well about breasts. But I did decide to go through the source years later as an editor. And I wrote about music. And I refused to write about music I didn't like, but I had to figure out and show and prove why I like the music I like. And thus those explanations, right, Papote?
Yes, sir.
But within all of that, though, I started to write in 1994 in a time, though, where we all knew that we made this culture. I'm from Sunset Park, Brooklyn. I'm probably out of all the Boricua places you could grow up. It's not East New York, right? It's not the South Bronx where hip-hop is created and manifested and blended together. It's from, to me, out of the 80s, the one Boricua neighborhood that's a ghost town. Not because there aren't any Boricuas there, it's filled. Because nobody knows it's hip-hop. Nobody knows it's there. Everybody goes Park Slope and then they skip to Bensonhurst. Or they skip to Bay Ridge. Or they skip to Borough Park. So when I started to write about hip-hop, that mentality of where it was from was also in what I was writing. What is a Boricua, and why don't we get credit, though, as being co-creators of this culture? Today, it becomes obvious, though, that people like Kike belong doing the music that is theirs. But when I was writing in the 90s, in the late 90s, editors used to tell me, you might want to fix this because Boricuas weren't really, the Puerto Ricans weren't there when it started. They didn't really make this up and everything like that. So I had to bring an education, right? I had to civilize them.
Wow, yeah.
I had to civilize them on the truth of what we're dealing with. And so that civilization couldn't stop and just say, we made this, we pop, lock, rap, everything. I couldn't just say we were Puerto Ricans and we decided how the breakbeat ought to go because we were the ones dancing to the breaks. Aside from going back to all the other dance roots within that. So I started to study what I was. And later on I started to write my own column, the Sunset Style column in college, when I was in college. And that's where magazines found me. And I started to realize something different when I was asked questions. They started to ask if you got some black in you, so I guess you're all right. And I said, I don't have some black. I'm not with black. I'm of black. My nature is black. Because the nature of black is original. The nature of original is indigenous. So you go, he's an indigenous man, he's the original black man. What's the difference? They're synonyms. They're synonyms. They're synonyms of culture. They're synonyms of blood. And if we had time, we'd go into melanin, though, and find out how the structure of melanin, though, is produced in the medulla oblongata, and how it manifests through the organs. And that big skin that covers you is the largest organ in your body. It's just one of those organs. But the melanocytes that make you black, brown, or as light as this brother here, are as black as that brother. So I started to study deeper because I wanted what I wrote to be more profound. I wanted it to last longer. I wanted me to be part of something that lasts longer because I know I just didn't come here 400 years ago. I'm not a blend that was made 400 years ago in an island laboratory called the Richport, where there was booty of all kinds. Money, gold, jewels, slavery, and massive amounts of culture. So I started to look differently at things. The Spaniard culture wasn't a Spaniard culture. It was basically a thieving, robbing, Europeanized culture whose worth, from the guitar, from the string theory, from the dress that they wore, from the designs that they wore, from the literature that they had, from the dynamic elements of dress that they had, that all came through those who civilized them before, the Moorish culture. Can't erase 800 years very quickly. But you could do it very well if you have something called the Inquisition. So these things became feeding points. These things became things that not just allowed me to go into showing and proving that we made some kind of dance music, some hip-hop music, and that we should be talking about things as oppression just like any other black brother, any other African brother. And mind you, most of the great MCs, they're not African American. They're from the islands. So when I started to realize all of these things, I got a knowledge of myself. And the first book I was asked to be part of was called New Yorkers from the Hip Hop Zone. I don't know if everybody ever heard of that book by Raquel Rivera. A great book. And there's only one Boricua in there saying that this culture is black and that those Puerto Ricans that do it are doing a culture that is their own naturally. And that was me. And I'm peppered throughout the book disagreeing with every other Boricua that pop, locked, rhymed, DJ'd, and breaked. Because I know it goes deeper than just what is presented. And so I wrote a history I was proving. I also wrote my own history. Just as brash as hip hop is, we wrote our own history. So now when it becomes a point where I say all these things, then I start to develop a knowledge of myself. A knowledge of myself is not just who I am and what identity I decide to have, but once you pick that grand identity, you decide the grand responsibility that you have. And this is where innovation and preservation start to merge. If I'm not innovating anything, I'm the first one to say things overtly about something that was improperly preserved. That's all our history here. Improper preservation. You see? Everything is good only if you have roots that go to Corsica. Aren't the Corsican immigrants the failed immigrants of Corsica that were allowed to come in and merge in there? And everybody took those last names because it was exciting. It was exciting to be embraced as a European. Something different, something, a way to build the preservation that could keep these people lasting.